Chapter 9, Decoding, Tearing Down the Components of English. Note, the heavy equipment shown in the above sketch is a crane. Let's play with that word, crane. Crane, C-R-A-N-E is the spelling. It is a beginning consonant blend, the C-R, which makes the kh sound. Then we have the vowel sound, the A, long A, and we spell that with the magic E, so we know the final E is silent. It will end with that N sound, crane. So we are back at the construction site, but this time what we're going to do is a bit easier than building the components of English. This time we're going to tear down our building, apartment by apartment, room by room, and sound by sound. Why are we tearing down? Tearing down words helps us to see what words are at their roots. So we understand the sound and meaning inside them better. I'm not sure if you ever held a sledgehammer in your hand, but it can be kind of fun to break things up. We break down the components of language when we read and listen to understand the meaning of the message we are getting from someone else. Decoding words by breaking them down. Words are built with a certain code, and therefore to understand them, they must be broken down. When we are reading for understanding and pronunciation purposes, we are going to deconstruct or tear down words. The recommended process for breaking down words in our reading and understanding goes like this. Number 1. Chunking room division. Break the word down into word rooms, which are syllables or word parts. So far, we have been dealing with single syllable words. Many words, however, have more than one syllable. There may be more than one room in your apartment. If we are breaking down the apartment so we can understand what the word means, we need to understand how many rooms we need to tear down. We need to break down the word room by room, syllable by syllable. How many syllables, rooms, in your word? How do we chunk words or break them down into syllables? Words are broken down by their vowel sounds. Remember, each syllable must have a vowel sound, and it most likely, but not always, has at least one consonant wall. Vowels can start and end word parts or word rooms, and these become open syllables. Dividing words into syllables. The process of chunking or breaking down words. A. Find the vowels and vowel pairs in the word and underline them. Let's look at regain. In regain, we have an E. We'll underline that. Then we have a vowel team of A-I. We'll underline that. Because I have two underlined sections in my word, I know I have two syllables, two vowel sounds, two syllables. B. For the most part, we separate the words at the midpoint between two consonants after the first vowel. Let's look at summit. Our first vowel is the U. We underline that. Our second vowel is the I. We underline that. Now, after our first vowel, we have two consonants coming together, M and M. So where are we going to make our separation? Between the two M's, of course. Summit. C. Determine if your word part begins and ends with an open or closed syllable. If a word part room begins or ends with a vowel, it is said to be an open syllable. It will usually make a long sound. Say its name. When splitting words with open vowels into syllables, split after the first vowel, which is usually long. Let's look at the word ego. I will underline the E, and I will underline the O. E is the first vowel sound. It is long, so I will make my separation between it and the G. Ego. Both the E and the O, by the way, say their names. If the vowel sound is surrounded by two consonant walls, it is said to be a closed syllable, like the sit in sitting, and that makes the vowel short. Sitting, I'll underline the I. In the first syllable, I will underline the I before the I in the ing. Then I make my split between the two consonants, so I have sitting. D. Leave bossy R control vowel sounds together. Continue to underline the vowels and separate at the midpoint between vowels. But remember that in R, or, we place the separation after the R. So we're not going to split up the A from the R, or the E from the R, or the I from the R, or the O from the R, or the U from the R. Let's look at important. I underline my I underline my O, and I underline my A. With 3 underlined sections, I know I now have 3 syllables to this word. Where do I make my first division? I have 2 consonants after the first vowel sound, so I am going to make that separation between the M and the P. Where is my second separation? I have 2 consonants after the O. So I do not want to split my OR. I will make my division between the R and the T. Important. Now let's look at that OR. We will sound box it because it will make one sound. We do not want to separate. E. When vowels are separated by single consonants, only have one vowel between them. Always try separating the word after the first vowel and before the consonant. See how that sounds. If it doesn't sound right, we can try splitting after the consonant. Let's look at metal. Put a line underneath the E and underline the A. We have 2 syllables. I want to try, first of all, to see how it sounds when I make that separation between the vowel and the consonant. So I have metal. It doesn't sound right. Metal sounds much better. F. Remember that magic E is silent, so there's no need to underline that. Break the words like you normally would. For learning purposes, you can put an X through it and all your magic E's. So let's look at escape. I underline the E, the first vowel, and then I underline the A. I do not have to underline the E because I know that is a magic E, and I will simply put an X through it. And of course, I separate my word between the 2 consonants that fall after the first syllable, so the S and the C. Escape. G. When a word ends in IE, the ul sound, count back 3 and split. Let's look at rebel. Number 1 is the E, number 2 is the L, number 3 is the second B. So what do? I split between the 2 B's. H. Be aware of consistent syllables like ch and sh. We make the split before the T in these words to keep these syllables together. Let's look at separation. I underline my E, I underline my A, I underline my second A, and I underline my O in shin. I know right away that I do not want to make that separation of that last syllable, T-I-O-N, so I'm going to sound box that as one unit. I know I have an R control word in there, R, so I'm going to sound box my AR so I don't make the separation there. I make my separation after the P, after the R, and after the A and between the T. Separation. So once you know the rules of word breakdown, room splitting, or chunking, you can begin doing so. Let's work with important. Important. I underline the I, underline the OR as one, and the A intent. Where do we separate? Well, I have my first vowel sound. My first vowel is the I, and I have a double consonant coming after that, so I separate between the M and the P. I also separate after the R in impor because I do not want to break up that OR. And it so happens that we are actually separating between two consonants like we are supposed to. Important. Let's look at different. I underline the I, underline the first E, and underline the second E. I know right away I have an sound in there, so I'm not going to split that up. My first vowel is followed by a double consonant. I split, first of all, between those two consonants. Then, because I want to keep my R intact with its E, I separate after the R. Different. Let's look at transition. I underline the A, I underline the I underline the I-O. I know shin is in there, so I'm going to sound box that just so that I know that I do not want to separate that suffix. I look at my word and I see my first vowel sound is followed by two consonants, so I make my first separation between the N and the S. And then, because I do not want to separate that shun sound, I make my second division after the I and before the T in shun. Signature, signature. I underline the I underline the A, I underline the U. Looking at my final E, I know that it is a magic key, so I'm going to So I can put an X over that E because it will be silent. Please note in the above examples we have word parts with both consonant vowels and word parts that either begin or end with a vowel. Let's review word division. So you can pause this audio at any time that you need more time to answer these questions. Can you break down the following words into syllables or word rooms using the rules above? Number 1, compound. Number 2, attempt. Number 3, misspell. Number 4, decode. Number 5, attend. Number 6, syllable. Number 7, assessment. And number 8, appendix. Pause the video and get back to me when you're done. Great work. You were really tearing down the walls that separate the rooms in your apartment. How does it feel? Pronunciation of multisyllable words and stressed syllables. Stressed syllables? Tearing down walls can be fun. The question arises, however, as to where we put our emphasis when we are pronouncing multisyllable words. In words with more than one syllable, there is something called a stressed syllable. A stressed syllable is the word part or word room that has the most impact. It is louder, longer, higher pitched, pronounced more fully and clearly than the other syllables in that word, and it requires different movements of those muscles needed for speech. You can observe yourself or another making larger movements of the jaw and lips when the stressed syllable is being pronounced in comparison to the sounding out of other syllables. How do we know which syllable is stressed? There are rules that can help us determine what syllable should be stressed. Of course, as we know by now, English has just as many rule breakers as it does rule followers. Not completely reliable stress rules. Number 1, if the two-syllable word is a noun or adjective, we stress the first syllable. A noun is a word that refers to a person, Albert Einstein, a thing, like a book, a place, like Canada, a quality, like intelligence or kindness, an idea, like universal peace, or an action, like the dancing. An adjective is a word that describes a noun. The pretty cat, the lazy sun, the classic book. Let's look at kindness, which is a quality, therefore a noun. We're going to pronounce the primary stress is going to be on that first syllable, kindness. Let's look at pretty, same thing, pretty. The first syllable gets the primary stress. Number 2, if the word is a compound noun, the first noun will have a little more emphasis, but not much. A compound noun is a noun with 2 full nouns in it, like sunset and greenhouse. Both of these are going to have stress, but one is going to have the primary stress, the most stress, and that is the first syllable. Sunset, greenhouse. If the 3-syllable word is a noun or adjective, we stress the first syllable. Pelican, permanent. 4. Words with more than 3 syllables tend to follow the following unreliable rules. A. Most longer words that end in A, B, L, E will have their primary stress on the first syllable. Applicable, comfortable, admirable. B. Most longer words that end in A, T, E will have the primary stress on the second syllable. Communicate, articulate, congratulate. C. Most longer words that end in ity will have their primary stress on the second syllable. Maternity, calamity, totality, pomposity. D. Most longer words that end in a, r, y have their primary stress on the second syllable. Obituary, judiciary. E. Most longer words that end in ive will have their primary stress on the second syllable. Affirmative, demonstrative. F. Most longer words that end in NAL will have the primary stress on the second syllable. Professional, intentional. G. Most words that end in TION tend to have the stress on the second last syllable before the shin. Federation, population. H. Most words that end in TIC have their stress on the second last syllable before the TIC. Democratic, energetic. Step 5. And when it comes to homographs, we'll discuss these in the next chapter. For now, just know they are words that are spelled the same and pronounced very much alike, other than where the stress is placed, but they have different meanings. We stress like this for homographs. A. If the homograph is a noun, the first syllable is stressed. Let's look at a homograph, delegate and delegate. When it becomes a noun, delegate, we hear the first syllable. When it becomes a verb, delegate, we hear the second syllable. So delegate, it's the first syllable to a delegate, and an object, we pronounce with stress the first syllable. If the homograph is a verb, the second syllable is stressed. A verb is a word used to describe an action, state of being, or occurrence. The dog walks, runs, fetches, and howls at the moon. He is an active pet. To delegate, to object. So we hear the second syllable taking the primary stress when those words become a verb. Stress can be primary or secondary. So though one syllable in a multisyllable word has the strongest impact, there may be other syllables with secondary stress. They are still strong, but not as strong as the primary stress syllable. Example photograph. Photograph. In photograph, the first syllable pho is of primary stress, and the last syllable graph is of secondary stress. Both syllables are stressed, but pho is stressed more so than graph. The schwa. So when we're pronouncing multisyllable words, there is one strong syllable that is stressed, where the vowel sound is strong and clear, louder, longer, and higher pitched than the other syllables. We may also have another syllable that is strong, of secondary stress to the primary stress. We will likely have as well one or more syllables that are very passive. The passive syllables will lose or distort its sound under the noise the stressed syllable is making. This passive vowel is known as the schwa. It is said to be lazy with a low The E is then used to represent schwa in a phonetic notation, the upside down E, or the I. Rarely the sound in certain words like potato may be unstressed. It is important to remember then that though a vowel in a word syllable will make one sound on its own, that sound may change in the context of the word it is in. Let's look at animal. A-N-I-M-A-L. We divide, we underline the A, underline the I, underline the second A. We know now we have 3 syllables. We make our division after the first N and after the I and between the M. That I forms one syllable by itself, and that will be a schwa. We will barely hear it. Animal. The I is a schwa and unstressed. In camel, we are going to make our division after we underline our A and our E between the M and the E. Camel. That EL ending, which is quite common, will always be a schwa E. So it will go unstressed. Sometimes if the schwa is found in the middle of the word, that syllable sound can get lost altogether. A 3-syllable word may sound like a 2-syllable word when that happens. Family, F-A-M-I-L-Y. The A is underlined, the I is underlined, the Y is underlined. We have 3 syllables. The I makes a syllable all by itself. Family, for example, is often pronounced family because the I in the middle has the schwa vowel sound, has become so lazy and is not sounded out fully. Note, not all words will have schwa syllables. Family, and you see it as family. How is stress and schwa represented in phonics? We can recognize the primary or secondary stress vowels and syllables and the schwa sound in this way. Primary stress syllable is marked with a slash above and before the first letter of the syllable it is being stressed. Secondary stress syllable is marked with a slash at the bottom and before the first letter of the syllable that is being secondarily stressed. The schwa is usually represented by an upside down E, too lazy to sit up. Now this E can be found right inside the phonetic notation, or it can be a little E, upside down E, on top of the vowel that is being unstressed. For the purposes of this, you will find it often in brackets behind the stressed or the unstressed vowel. Let's look at photograph. You see the slash above the P. You see the slash on the bottom before the G. Pho then is primarily stressed. Graph is secondarily stressed. And you see that schwa E right in the middle. When we go to hurricane, you'll see that the separation of those 3. You'll see the slash on top of the first syllable but in front of the H, and you'll see the slash on the bottom in front of the K in cane. So the first syllable is primarily stressed. The last syllable is secondarily stressed. And the I, you'll see that I put an E there in brackets to indicate that that will be schwa. Note the E beside the vowel or the E in place of the vowel will indicate the schwa. And then we have category. Now category can be divided differently in many different dialects, and we can have our stress and schwa in different areas. But for category here, what we're going to see is that the upper slash is above the K, is in front of the K, the first syllable, and the lower slash is in front of the G of the third syllable. So the first syllable is primarily stressed, the third syllable is secondarily stressed. And we'll hear the schwa in the final, in the middle between those two, primary and secondary stressed. So it's category. Please note, the word is divided and pronounced differently in different English dialects. Examine. Examine is another word that is pronounced differently in different English dialects and separated differently. Many people will say examine, and we'll see that in the British and American phonetic notations. And in Canada, what I tend to say is examine. So I do have that X in my first syllable, that X sound. So regardless, in examine, whatever way you pronounce it, we see the primary stress on the second syllable. The numerical approach. There is another way of determining and representing the primary and secondary stresses as well as the schwa in a word. Though it's not used very much anymore, numbering the syllables may help in getting us used to recognizing, hearing, and seeing the different stresses in a multi-syllable word. In this approach, the primary syllable is labeled with a number 1 above it, the secondary stressed syllable is labeled with a 2, and the unstressed syllable with the schwa is labeled with a 0. The number patterns devised on this approach are like this. Number 1. For two-syllable words, we'll have either a stressed numerical order of 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 2, or 2, 1. Let's look at the word below. We see the numerical notation of 0, 1. The first syllable is unstressed. The second syllable, low, is considered primary stress. Below. We're going to hear the low more so than the B. Let's look at silly. 1, 0 is the numerical notation. 1 being the primary syllable, sil, and 0 is over the li, which makes it unstressed. Silly. Let's look at snowman. Again, this is a compound word. Both words will be stressed, but one will carry more of the stress and be primary, and the second one will be secondary. That's why we see the numerical notation of 1, 2 over snowman. The first syllable, snow, is primary. The second syllable, man, is secondary. Let's look at monsoon. Monsoon, number 2, is sitting above the first syllable, so we know that is secondary, and we see the 1 over the last syllable, so we know that is primary. Monsoon. So we're going to hear the soon more so than the mon in monsoon. Number 2. 3-syllable words can have a numerical pattern of 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 0, 1, 0, 2, 2, 0, 1, or 2, 1, 0. We have a 0, 1, 0 pattern over examine, if it's pronounced the Canadian way. So the first syllable is said to be unstressed. There is a 0. The second syllable has the 1, so we know that's going to be our primary stress. And the last syllable is also unstressed. Examine. And the middle syllable is greatly stressed, more so than the others. We now have a numerical notation of 1, 0, 0 over parable. 1, of course, means primary stress. It's over the first syllable. The first syllable is primary stressed. The second syllable is unstressed, and so is the third. Parable. Parable. 1, 0, 2 over hurricane. primary stress on the first syllable, secondary stress on the last syllable, and the middle syllable contains no stress, unstressed. Hurricane, hurricane. 201, inexact. That makes the first syllable a secondary stress, the middle syllable unstressed, and the last syllable or third syllable primary stressed. Act, inexact. Number 3, words with more than 3 syllables can have a pattern of 1020, 2001, or 2010. 1020 pattern over category. Again, remember this word may be divided and stressed differently in different English dialects. The number 1 is over the first syllable, cat, so that's primarily stressed. The second syllable, t, is unstressed. The third syllable, gore, is secondarily stressed. And the final syllable, e, is unstressed. Category, category. 2001 over aquamarine. The first syllable, a, is a 2. It is secondarily stressed. The second syllable is unstressed. The third syllable is unstressed. And the final syllable takes most of the stress as the primary stressed syllable. Aquamarine. We have 2010 over parasitic. So 2 is secondarily stressed over the par, so that's our secondary stress, the first one. The second syllable is unstressed, and the third syllable is primarily stressed, and the last syllable is unstressed. Parasitic, parasitic. Don't worry about this numerical approach unless you find it helpful. Hearing and producing stressed and unstressed syllables takes practice, so be patient with yourself. Can I use a dictionary for word division and pronunciation? Though it is best not to be dependent on a dictionary, so you can get in the habit of sounding out and listening to the syllables and their stresses, it is okay to check your answers in a dictionary as you learn. Practice first, though, before you resort to looking it up. Practice first without the dictionary. Following the rules above and testing out the pronunciation by putting stress on different syllables as you sound out each word is the best place to start. Then you can turn to the dictionary to confirm your decision. Many hard copy and online dictionaries will display the syllable division and the stresses or schwa symbols in the phonetic display of the word. Such dictionaries like Cambridge Online Dictionary, and I've given you the site here, and the Merriam-Webster Online Dictionary will offer the IPA guide to the pronunciation of each word, including these division symbols. Let's look at responsible. We see it broken down. We see the slashes where they're supposed to be. The upper slashes are primary stress. The lower slashes are secondary stress. And we see the E indicating the schwa or unstressed syllables. From the Merriam-Webster Online Dictionary, that was the first one, we see here from the stress slash at the top and in front of the first S in responsible that the second syllable holds the primary stress. Being that there is no stress slash stress at the bottom preceding another syllable, we know there is no secondary stress in the word responsible. The schwa is found in the third and fourth syllable. Schwa, not always schwa, but unstressed at least. Banana. We see the word banana, we see that it's a noun because that, knowing that, will indicate where we put our stress, especially if it's a homograph. In the UK, we see the upper slash before the end and the second syllable. We do not see any lower slashes. In the US version, we see it the same way. But you will see from this word how the division is differently. It is divided differently between the syllables. Be mindful of that in your pronunciation guides. And that one is from the Cambridge Online Dictionary. They offer as well an audio version of the pronounced word, so it kind of helps you to listen to it being pronounced as you look at the phonetic notation. Note, sometimes the schwa is marked with the E placed above the vowel in the notation. Let's review syllable stresses and schwa. Again, pause the audio at any time you need to take more time to answer these questions. Number 1. The word room with the most impact in a multisyllable word is known as A, the schwa, B, the primary stressed syllable, C, the secondary stressed syllable, or D, the unstressed syllable. 2. Which is true about the primary stressed syllable in a word? A, it is louder and longer than the other syllables. B, it is of higher pitch than the other syllables. 3, it requires more observable movements of the vocal muscles. We can see the mouth or other muscles moving more in the speaker when they pronounce this syllable than in the others. D, all the above. 3. Which is true about the secondary stressed syllable? A, it is not heard. B, it is as strong as the primary stressed syllable. C, it is strong and heard but less so than the primary. D, it can make a 3-syllable word sound like a 2-syllable word. 4. Which is true about the schwa? A, the vowel sound is lazy and usually muffled and distorted. B, represented phonetically by an upside down E. C, it makes a low or sound usually. D, all the above. Number 5. In a 2-syllable noun or adjective, the first syllable is usually stressed. A, true. B, false. 6. In a compound noun, the first syllable is usually secondary. A, true. B, false. Number 7. The first syllable of a 3-syllable noun or adjective is usually stressed. A, true. B, false. Number 8. The rule for stress and schwa are very reliable. A, true. B, false. 9. In words with more than 3 syllables, the second syllable is usually stressed when words end with A, A-T-E, B, T-I-V-E, C, N-A-L, or D, all of the above. Number 10. In words with more than 3 syllables, the second last syllable is stressed when words end with A-R-Y, B, A-B-L-E, C, T-I-O-N, or D, T-Y. Number 11. What is the primary stressed syllable in the following words according to the symbols used? I am just going to use the word and I want you to read what you see beside each word. A, hurricane. B, examine. C, snowman. D, Montana. Again, you can pause the audio at any time to spend more time answering these questions. Number 12. What are the secondary stressed syllables, if there are any, and the schwa in the above words according to the symbols? So go back to number 11 and look at those words and determine what the secondary stressed syllables are, if there are any, and the schwa. Number 13. In the numerical approach, her and hurricane would have the number 2 above it. A, true. B, false. Number 14. The schwa syllables or unstressed syllables in category would have the number 1 above them. A, true. B, false. Number 15. Pronounce the following multisyllable words. I have shown you the phonetic notation as well as the spelling, and I will just read the words myself, and then you can go back and pronounce them to yourself later. A, telegraph. B, telegraphy. C, telegraphic. D, banana. E, bandana. F, commentary. Tater. 16. Can you assign a numerical stress pattern to the following words? A, accent. B, canoe. C, parrot. D, canopy. Pause the audio at any time to spend more time answering your questions if you need to. Great job. That was tough, I know. Great for you in giving it your all. Just keep practicing. Let's continue with the decoding steps. So we took a bit of a side road away from the decoding steps to discuss syllable division and stress and schwa. Let's get back to the steps of decoding. This is basically what we're trying to do when we get to the word part or syllable. And you'll remember this chart: beginning, middle, and end in word part or one syllable word. Beginning, middle, ending. In the beginning column, we're looking for these to build or decode. Single consonant sounds, 2 sound consonant blends, 3 sound consonant blends, digraphs, vowel sound if open syllable room, and is it a prefix? In the middle, just as a reminder, we're looking for these to build or decode. Short vowel sound, long vowel sound, diphthongs, and vowel trigraphs. In the ending, we are looking for these to build or decode. Ending vowel sound if open syllable, ending vowel diphthong, ending vowel included trigraph, single consonant sound if closed syllable, ending consonant blend, ending digraph, ending consonant trigraph. Is it a suffix? Please see the decoding words checklist in the appendix at the end of this book for you to use on those complicated words you may be having a challenging time with. We will practice using one of these together at the end of this chapter. We'll take a word and go through that chart. That chart is just a composition of everything we've learned, and we will work on it together at the end of this chapter. 9. Once you have chunks divided, start with decoding the first syllable and progress from one syllable to the next. 10. Is the first syllable a prefix? Just good to note for now. Is the first syllable a prefix? Number 11, the beginning. Tear down the beginning consonant walls, if there are any, in the syllable or word room you are working with. First, identify the consonant sounds at the beginning of each word part, the beginning wall or walls of your word room. Remember that each consonant in a consonant blend, like the T and the R in transition, will keep its own sound, while those in a digraph, trigraph, will make one sound. 12. When you get to the middle of the word, determine the vowel sound you are reading or hearing. Is it short or long? Is it a vowel pair, diphthong, or part of a trigraph? Is it a rule follower or breaker? Sound it out. 13. In the ending of the word, determine the ending sound. Is this an open or closed syllable? Is there a consonant wall? Determine the sound. Open or closed syllable. Just a reminder, we're talking about word parts here. When we deal with multisyllable words, we'll be using the beginning, middle, and ending for every word part or syllable. Often, however, we'll be using one-syllable words. So if you hear word part or word, they are basically the same thing when we're talking about these steps. but remember, it is the word part of a multiple syllable word that we are focusing on. There is a way of combining steps 5 and 6 that might make it easier for you. Determine the sound the remainder of the word part is making. There are 2 ways we can do this: middle and ending combined. For simple words or word parts, we can determine the rhyme, the combination of ending vowel and consonant sounds. Or we can go from one separate sound in the word part to the next, from the middle to the ending. A. Let's look at the onset and rhyme method first. Let's say we broke down the word signature into its chunks and are now working on the first syllable, one word part, sig, S-I-G. If we use the onset and rhyme method, the S is the onset and the I-G becomes the rhyme. We hear the same ig rhyme in pig, jig, wig. It is a short I and a hard G combination sound we're hearing. Combining this rhyme with the onset creates the sig in signature. We worked through the first syllable. We are now ready to go on to the next room, which is the next syllable. First syllable, onset, rhyme. Sig, S is the onset, ig is the rhyme. Now again, this is just for the onset and rhyme method. B, or we could, instead of using the onset and rhyme method, sound out each consonant and vowel separately. We determine that S is our first sound, and we sound that out. After the first consonant vowel sound, we can proceed to the vowel sound. In the first syllable of signature, we see a signal vowel I between 2 consonant vowels. Can you tell by the structure of the word room if the vowel sound will be short or long? Remember those short vowel rules from way back. This I in sig in the word signature follows the rule that if a single vowel falls between 2 single consonant vowels without a key making a closed syllable, it will be short. So we will sound out the short I as we would in pig. Then we proceed to the final consonant vowel of that word room, if there is one. In this case, we have a G, j sound. G, as we know, can make the hard G sound as in game, or the soft G sound as in jam or gem. Practice with all possible sounds your consonant can make to see what feels better to your ears. In this case, it is a hard G. We have sig. First syllable, sig, and that is equal to S-I-G. And the spelling, we have the phonetic notation underneath. We know it's a short I sound, and that is our first syllable. We see 2 consonant vowels, the bricks represent consonant vowels, and a vowel in between, and that gives us one word room, one syllable, one word part. All 3 of those are used interchangeably to mean the same thing. So we have an S, an I, a G equals sig. 14. After we deconstructed and sounded out the first syllable, which is the same as tearing the first word down, we go to the next and do the same. We keep moving through the syllables or word rooms this way until we get to the last one. We go from the first syllable to the second syllable to the third syllable, etc., etc. 15. There are certain final syllables that are said to be consistent and that make one sound. The ch, T-U-R-E, in signature and the sh in transition both follow this rule. For ch, there is a sh sound, and for shin, there is a shn sound. We do not need to break down these word parts in our usual way. We will keep them intact. 16. Was this last syllable or room a suffix? Just good to note for now. Let's continue to practice tearing down words. Signature. So let's finish off our word work on the word signature. We completed the first syllable, sig, and now we can proceed to the second word room, second syllable, second word part, whatever you want to call it. We're referring to the same thing. Na, N-A. This is an open syllable because it doesn't have a final consonant wall. It ends with a vowel. Second syllable equals N-A. Beginning first vowel, we have a beginning consonant N. In the middle, we have a vowel A, a short A. What sound does it make? This word part ends in a vowel, so it's said to be open, like a room that opens to the outdoors. It is an open syllable, and in most open syllables, the vowel is long and says its name. The A and A, not an A here, is supposed to say its name, the long A sound. We should hear the A as in nature. Nature. Because it is a schwa syllable, however, the long A reverts to the sound. Remember that by themselves, word parts have one sound, but that sound can change in the context of the word because of stress and schwa. Ending final vowel, do we have one? No, it is an open syllable. Put it all together and we have our second syllable, na. Signature. It should be A, remember, but because of the schwa, which we'll see later on, it's going to be the short A sound. Third syllable, ch. Our last syllable is a consistent ending syllable. We leave it intact. How do we pronounce it? Ch. There is a distinct sound in there because of the bossy R. Let's look at it again. Signature. The U in signature at the end becomes short and that E is crossed out. We box the T and we box the UR as one sound. Signature. And there's your phonetic notation for signature. We'll also see in this phonetic notation that the primary stress is on the first syllable, sig. And I do not see any secondary stress. But we see a schwa, we put the E in backwards behind the A in na to indicate that it is a schwa sound. And we also see it in that last syllable, ch. The E before the R is also schwa. Signature. We have completed the word work for signature. Let's decode. Important. Important. Let's underline those vowels, I, O, and A. Now, if I find my I to be my first vowel sound, and it is followed by two consonants, M and P, we're going to separate between the M and the P. We want to keep that OR intact as well. We want to separate between the two consonants R and T, so that is where our separation lies, between R and T. Important. So we found our vowels and separated at the middle point between consonants, ensuring that each chunk had a vowel sound. We ended up with 3 word rooms or syllables. Important. The first syllable is M, I am. Do we have a first wall or walls? There is no first wall. This syllable's open because it begins with a vowel. We do not have to tear down that first consonant wall because there is none. It's an open syllable. What sound is the first vowel making? Because the I is separated from the next vowel by 2 consonant walls, it will be short. Final vowel, we have an M. Put it all together, we have im, as in Tim. Im, im, im. You'll see that the consonant vowel's crossed off because we do not have one. It is an open syllable. We put a sound box over the I and a sound box over the M. We know that im sound is short. And there is your phonetic. Oh, I don't have your phonetic notation here. Important. The second syllable is por. Do we have a beginning first vowel? Yes, we have a single consonant, P. Do we have a middle? What sound is the vowel sound making? Again, that O is separated from the next vowel by two consonant vowels, so it would be short. But we will not hear the short O like we normally would because we have a bossy R thing going on. We have an OR sound, an OR sound that we will not separate. Ending final vowel was R, but put together with O, we create the OR as one sound. Put it together, we have por. P-O-R, P plus OR equals two sounds. But the OR makes one sound, so we box the P and we box the OR as one sound. Important. We can also sound this out with onset and rhyme. Pa is onset, or is rhyme. Or. Third syllable, tat. Beginning first vowel, T sound. Middle vowel sound, short A. Final consonant vowels. We have two sounds, N and T. Put together, for tat. T-A-N-A-T, four sounds. Each letter in that syllable gets a sound box. Important. We see the short, the breath over the I in the first syllable. We see the long sound over the O and the breath over the A in tat. We have used onset and rhyme here too. T for onset, rhyme for ant. We could also change that T to pant, just to show you how it is onset and rhyme. Put it together for important. Let's review the process of decoding multisyllable words. With the words below, do the following. Chunk the word divided into rooms by breaking it down into syllables. Review the process of breaking down words. Remember to begin by underlining the vowel sounds. Decode and sound out each syllable, starting with the first and moving to the last. When decoding word parts, divide word part room syllables into beginning, first vowel or vowels, middle, vowel sound, and the ending, and or onset and rhyme. Put a sound box around each sound made in the word. Put an X through any silent letters. Sound out the word. Remember your stress and schwa rules. Define the word. Find its meaning. Put it in your word journal. If you want to take the time now to pause this and go to the end of this chapter, you will see the word decoding checklist, which include all these steps, step by step, as you proceed through each word. You may find that easier to use at this point. Like I said, we are going to use that chart together at the end of this chapter to review one word. But for now, continue with this exercise. Pause at any time you need to spend as much time as you need on this exercise. So we're going to start with the first word. I'll just read the words for now, and then you can pause to complete the exercise. The first word is family. In family, I'm going to begin by underlining each of my vowel sounds. I underline the A, I underline the I, and I underline the Y. Remember, Y is often a vowel sound at the end of the word. Now, I break it up into syllables by trying. First of all, we're always going to try when we break up our syllables if one consonant follows the vowel, to try to keep the separate between the A and the M, for example. When I do that, it does not make sense. So I try the other way by making my separation after the consonant, after the M. So my first syllable happens to be fam, F-A-M. My second syllable is going to be I, just an I, and the third syllable is L-Y. When I sound that out, fam becomes the primary stressor. The I in the middle is a schwa, so as you've seen, I just put the E on top here. You can put the E on top. You can put it in brackets beside the vowel that's going to be shod or not stressed, or you can include it as the vowel in the phonetic notation. And then we have Ly as our final consonant. We're going to do difficult, so the next word you will do is difficult. I am just going to read the words to you. You can pause at the end and go complete the exercise. Elephant, conversational, animal, melody, ordinary, inexcusable, energy, volcano, intelligent, simultaneous, piano, tomorrow, ambitious, unacceptable, calendar, banana, disposable, supernatural, perfection, diamond, responsible. So you can pause your audio and go ahead and complete that exercise. And remember, if you find any interesting words, especially if they're challenging, to add to your word work journal, please do so. Wow, you've come a long way. Just reading this book to this point is something to pat yourself on the back for. On top of that, you attempted many challenging review exercises. Okay, thumbs up. Word decoding checklist. So here's the word decoding checklist that you'll find in the appendix that you can download and print for yourself, should you decide to. You don't want to do it with every word because it is quite long, but it will help in challenging circumstances. So we have the word decoding checklist, and the word we're going to decode is beneficial. So if you look at this checklist, you'll see 3 columns. The first one is the steps to the decoding process. The second column is the word work done. And the third column is just a check to say you've completed it. So we're going to start with step 1. How many syllables? Determined by completing A and B. So that was your step 1. Beneficial was the word. Before I answer the top part, then I'm going to go down and complete A and B, and that should help me to determine how many syllables I will be working with in this word. A. Underline vowels. Vowel teams are underlined as one. So I'll underline the vowels in beneficial. I underline the E, the first E. I underline the second E. I underline the I, and I underline the IA. Now in B, we divide according to the rules. If I look up ahead, I know I have 4 syllables because I had 4 vowel sections in this word. But we're going to divide according to the many rules you've found in this chapter. We're going to start with the first one. Now we're going to try, because after our first vowel sound we just have 1 single consonant, and the rule of thumb is try to separate before the consonant if you can. If that doesn't make sense to you or it doesn't sound right, then separate after the consonant. In this case, we're separating after the consonant. Ben, B-E-N, ben becomes 1 syllable. The second syllable is one letter, E. We have FIC as one syllable, and we have IAL as one syllable. The ending syllable is going to make one sound, okay? A schwa and one sound. So let's look at that further as we go on. So we now know we have 4 syllables, and those are the syllables we have. First syllable is step 2. The first syllable is ben, B-E-N. Is ben a prefix? What does the prefix mean? No, it is a word group, a word root that means good. Is the syllable open or closed? If it is open, move on to G. If it is closed, go to C. We know it is closed. It begins with a consonant, so that syllable is closed at the beginning. C. Can it be broken into the onset and rhyme? If so, what is the onset? Can ben be broken into onset and rhyme? Yes, it can. B will be our onset. In the beginning, does it begin with a single consonant, a double blend, a triple blend, or a digraph? It begins with one single consonant. Sound that consonant out and sound box the beginning graphemes of the first syllable. So we sound out the B, B, and we put a sound box around the B in ben. F. What sound does it make? What is the phonetic symbol? We see the phonetic symbol in the next line. G. Look at the remainder of the word part. Does it make a common rhyme? Which one? Yes, it does make a common rhyme, and it's N, as in hen, then, ren, when. Middle. What vowel graphemes are you seeing in the syllable? Is it a single vowel or a vowel team? We're seeing an E, a single vowel. I. What sound does the grapheme represent? Long or short? Monophthong or diphthong? It is a short vowel sound, and it is a monophthong. It is only making one sound. J. Sound out and sound box the grapheme. So the grapheme in ben that's making the vowel sound is the E, so we sound box the E. What is the vowel phonetic notation? You'll see E in there. Our notations, remember, are in between 2 slashes. We're ready to move on to the ending of that first syllable. And the ending of the first syllable, we need to ask, first of all, is it open or closed? And it is closed. Why? Because it ends with a consonant. M. If closed, is the word part ending with a single consonant, a double or triple blend, a digraph, trigraph, or with a floss ending? It is ending with a single consonant. That single consonant is N. So sound out and sound box that single consonant in the first syllable. And it's the N, so we put a sound box around end. N. O. Write the phonetic notation for this phoneme. So it just happens to be an N between 2 slashes. N sound. P. Now we want the phonetic, after we've completed the beginning, the middle, and the ending of our first syllable, we want to write the phonetic notation for the entire syllable, and you will see that there. So it's ben, ben. We're moving on now to our second syllable. And what is the second syllable in the word beneficial? It's E. A. Is this the final syllable? Is it a suffix? Which one and what does it mean? We know it is not a final syllable. It is simply the second syllable. We have 2 more after this. Is it open or closed? If it is open, move on to G. If it is closed, go to C. It is open. It is open because it begins with a vowel sound. It also ends with one, but this part of the question is just asking, does it open with one? Can it be broken down into onset and rhyme? If so, what is the onset? And no, it cannot. So we're going to scoot down. Everything else is going to be non-applicable. The NA stands for non-applicable because we're dealing with an open, not a closed syllable. So we work our way all the way to G. G for the middle of the word, because our vowel sounds are normally found in the middle of every word part or one syllable word. Middle. What vowel graphemes are you seeing in the syllable? Is it a single vowel or vowel team? We're just seeing one vowel. It's E. What sound do the graphemes represent? Long or short? Monophthong or diphthong? Short, and it's a monophthong. It only makes one sound, requiring very little movement of the mouth. HI, sound out and sound box the grapheme. It's I. So we have a box around the E. We don't have any other graphemes in that syllable, just the E. Phonetic notation for the phoneme, and we see that I sound, as in pig, as in bit, I, as in it. That's the sound that I makes. It's this phonemic symbol is a capital I between two slashes. Now, what is the phonetic notation for the entire syllable? Being that there's only one letter, it's just the same thing. One I, capital I, making the I sound. We're moving on now to the ending of that second syllable, and we're asking the question, is the ending open or closed? And it is open. Why? Because we only have one vowel making the entire syllable, so it's open at the beginning and open at the end. If it was closed, we would go on to answer the following questions, but they're all non-applicable for now until we get to the third syllable. The phonetic notation for the entire syllable is just going to be an E. E. Third syllable. Is this the final syllable? Is it a suffix? Which one and what does it mean? No, it is not a suffix, and it is not the final syllable. FIC was our third syllable. And you'll notice on the last column that I'm checking off as we go that we've completed these steps. B. Is it open or closed? If it is open, go to G. If it is closed, proceed to C. It is closed. So we will proceed to C. It ends in a consonant, so it is closed. Beginning. Does the beginning of the syllable start with a single consonant, a double blend, a triple blend, or a digraph? It begins with a single consonant F. D. Sound it out and sound box the beginning graphemes of the first syllable. So we see our syllable, F-I-C, and I'm going to sound box the F, the F sound for the F. What sound does it make? That F, the phonetic symbol, is making the F sound. So we'll see the F as a phonetic symbol as well. F. Look at the remainder of the word part. Does it make a common rhyme? Which one? No, it does not. The middle, G. What vowel graphemes are you seeing in the syllable? Is it a single vowel or a vowel team? In the middle of F-I-C, I see an I, so it is a single vowel. What sound does the grapheme represent? Long or short, monophthong or diphthong? It is short and it is a monophthong. Sound out and sound box this grapheme. So we put a box around the I. and it's making that short sound again. Phonetic notation for the vowel sound. It's a capital I between two slashes. And the ending, is it open or closed syllable? It is closed. If closed, is the word part ending with a single consonant or a double, a triple blend, a digraph, a trigraph, or a floss ending? Single consonant grapheme. It is just ending with one single consonant, and we see the C. Sound out and sound box that ending consonant. So we put a box around C. Now, phonetic notation for this phoneme. The thing about this is that this C is going to make a sound we don't often hear C making, and that is the sh sound. The sh sound, especially because of the I that follows. So the phonetic symbol notation for this symbol is that S-looking snake-like phoneme representation or notation. Sounds like sh. So what is the phonetic notation for the entire syllable? We're going to see the F symbol. We're going to see that capital I as for the short I symbol. And we're going to see that funny-looking S for the sh symbol. So it's fsh. Fsh. This is where we get our benefsh. The fourth syllable. We're ready to move on to our fourth syllable, I-A-L. Is this the final syllable? If so, is it a suffix? What does the suffix mean? And yes, it is the final syllable, and it is a suffix. The suffix means I-A-L, having to do with, related to, pertaining to. That is what I-A-L means. B. Is it open or closed? If it is open, move on to F. If it is closed, go to C. This is an open beginning. It starts with a vowel sound, so it is open. That means that C, can it be broken into onset and rhyme? If so, what is the onset? No, it cannot. And D, beginning consonant, does it begin with a single consonant, a double blend, or a triple blend, or a digraph? Is non-applicable because it's a vowel sound. E, sounded out and sound box, the beginning graphemes of the first syllable. That's non-applicable here. We're going to do that in the middle part. And what sound does it make? Phonetic symbol, non-applicable. Look at the remainder of your word part. Does it make a common rhyme? Which one? Non-applicable. Now, this is where we go to, because it's an open syllable. H, middle. What vowel graphemes are you seeing in this syllable? Is it a single vowel or a vowel team? I-A. I'm seeing I-A. That is an unfamiliar vowel team. I don't even think we have that on our list. I. What sound do the graphemes represent? Long or short? Monophthong or diphthong? Now this is short, and it is a very uncommon diphthong that I don't even think we have on our list. Sound out and sound box the graphemes. So we're going to put a box around the IA, and then we'll continue. Both letters will be in one box because we're making one sound. Vowel phonetic notation. We're going to have the schwa. Every time we end with an IAL or an L, we usually see the schwa. It's a schwa syllable, unstressed syllable. So we're seeing the upside down E to represent a schwa sound. Is the ending, when we're going to get to the ending, open or closed? It is closed. Why? Because it ends with a consonant. If closed, is the word part ending with a single consonant, a double or triple blend, a digraph, trigraph, or with a floss ending? We did have in the floss rule that all words, if they follow one vowel, F, L, S, or Z, will have those letters doubled. but this is IAL, so it doesn't apply to the floss rule. It's just a single L. Why? Because of the vowel preceding it. So be mindful of that. We do not have to double that L. Sound out and sound box. So we're just going to put a box around the L. Phonetic notation for ending the grapheme. Then you'll see the L between two slashes, and that's the sound O. And then finally B, the phonetic notation for the entire syllable. So what we have here is 3 letters, 2 sounds. We have the upside down E to represent the letters I, A, and then we have the L. And it is, because of that letter, schwa letter, a unstressed syllable. Now, if we had more than 4 syllables, we would just continue with this. 5 would go into the 5th syllable, the 6th syllable, etc. But we're going to stop it here and go on as if there's only 4, as there is only 4 in beneficial. Number 6. Once all syllables are decoded, define the word. Remember, suffixes and prefixes will change the meaning of the word root. Note, if it is a noun, verb, adjective, adverb, as this could affect stress and schwa, and therefore pronunciation as well as meaning. So let's look at our word beneficial. We said the meaning, when I knew what my suffix was, related to or pertaining to, so I'm going to start there, and related to being of benefit, because the rest of the word benefit comes from benefit. So related to being a benefit, which means being good or helpful. And it is an adjective. 7. Put phonetic notation together. Place stress and schwa and sound outward accordingly. Remember, vowel sounds may change to accommodate stress and schwa. Before stress and schwa, this is the phonetic notation we would have, just by taking everything we broke apart and bringing it down. But after schwa and stress, we'll see things changing. First of all, we'll see that the 3rd syllable is a primary stress syllable, and there is no little lines before. Ben is our secondary stress syllable. But you will notice that in the first, after the I, the second syllable with the I sound stays like an I sound in some pronunciations, but in other pronunciations it becomes the schwa. And I could have put a little E in brackets besides that I, but in the first notation it is not unstressed. So we have beneficial, beneficial. Go back to spelling and meaning. Number 8. Sound out the word as you spell it out by hand 5 times. And there is a reason for doing this. When we write, we're using our hand. If we write and speak at the same time, we're connecting our pronunciation with the written word. If we're thinking of the word, we're connecting the mental capacity and memorization ability with the speaking and the writing. And by doing it 5 times, we help to connect to the word and to be able to remember it more easily in the future. So you'll see beneficial, 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 beneficial. And number 9, put the word back in the sentence you obtained it from. Read it out loud, then put it in a new sentence and or draw a picture of that which the word represents. So, I'm hoping you found this exercise beneficial. Answers to review questions. Word division review. 1. Compound. We have an underline under the O and under the OU, and I don't know why that X is here. Equals compound. Attempt. We have a underlined underneath the A. We have one underneath the E. We broke our word up between the two T's. Misspell. We have an underline under the I. We have one under the E, so we know we have two syllables. We split between the two S's. In decode, I have a line underneath the E. I have a line underneath the O. That X that's on top of in compound is supposed to be behind the E in decode because it's a magic E. We make the split. We try it both ways. We try, first of all, right after the first vowel sound and before the consonant, which we've done, and that's exactly how it sounds. Decode would not sound right, so it is decode. 5. Attend. We put an underline under the A and one under the E. We know we have two vowel sounds. We split between the two T's. Syllable. The Y, of course, makes a vowel sound, so we underline that. The A makes a vowel sound, and the E, so I'll talk about that in a minute, is seen as a vowel sound. We know that Y can replace E or I here, so it can be a schwa or it can be the I sound, so a syllable. So we make our distinction. We try, first of all, to make that break right after the first vowel sound, but it doesn't sound right. So we make it afterwards, so it's sill. Then we have, of course we have two L's, so of course we're going to make it between the two L's. Then we have the la, which is an open syllable, followed by bull. Now, that E does not make a sound, but we still call it a syllable with a vowel sound because of the nature of that L sound. It's a little complicated, but you could have an X over the E there. I did not put one in because I did not want to confuse you, but it can be that way. Number 7, assessment. We're going to put an underline under the A, one underneath the E, and one underneath the second E. Because we have two S's together, I'm going to split them, so I'm going to make my first syllable division between the two S's. Then I have SS and an M. I'm going to make a division between the S and the M, second S and the M. It is good to note here that these two S's only make one S sound because we're talking about the floss rule. Then in number 8 we have appendix. I'm going to underline the A, I'm going to underline the E, and I'm going to underline the I. We have 3 underlined components, 3 vowel sounds, therefore 3 syllables. Appendix, I'm going to separate those 2 P's. So my first suffix is ap, my second is pen. I'm separating between the N and the D, so dix becomes my third syllable. Appendix. Stress and schwa review. Number 1, B, primary. Number 2, D, all the above. Number 3, C, strong but less than primary. 4 is D, all the above. 5A is true. 6B is false, first syllable is primary. 7A is true. 8B is false, it's the unreliable stress rules. 9D, all the above. 10C, shin. 11A, first, her. B, second, am. C, first, snow. D, second, tan. 12A, secondary, cane. I, schwa. B, no. Secondary, ine, schwa. C, man, secondary, no schwa. D, mon, secondary, a schwa. 13B, false, number 1. 14 be false, number 0, 15 good luck, 16a 1, 2b 0, 1, c 1, 0, d 1, 0. The reason why I said good luck for 15 is something you don't have to show your work for. It's all about pronunciation. Decoding process review, see below. I will not sound box them unless they are a diphthong, digraph, or trigraph. So we see family divided. The first division is after the M. Second division is after the I. Family. The fam is the primary stress. The I is a schwa. Difficult. So in difficult, I make my division between the two F's for the first syllable. Then I make it after the I for the second and third syllables. I have a primary stress by the slash at the top in front of the D. Primary stress in the first syllable. I have a secondary stress in cult. So I see that little slash on the bottom before the C. I have no schwa in this word. Difficult. Elephant. I underline the first D, I underline the second D, I underline the A. I put the primary stress on the first syllable. You'll see the slash at the top in front of the E. Do not see a secondary stress, so it's elephant. Two schwas, one over the first syllable and one over the last syllable. Then I have conversational. We're making our first division. First of all, we're looking for our first syllable, which is the O. Then we have two consonants following that, so we're going to divide that to create our first syllable. Then we have a split between the consonants R and S. And then we have shun. We do not want to tear that apart, so that's going to be a consonant by itself. And we follow by the suffix AL. Conversational. The secondary stress is on this, in the below. We see a little slash at the bottom in front of the C. The first syllable is secondary. The third syllable, say, is primary. I see a schwa above the ver, the shun, and the L. I-L, A-E-L, I-A-L. That tends to be a schwa in there. So it's conversational. Conversational. In animal, I underline the A, underline the I, underline the M. I make my split after the N for the first syllable. We try it both ways. And then after the I, between the I and the M, I becomes a syllable all by itself. So where are my stresses and my schwas? My primary stress is in the first syllable. You see the symbol there. I have no secondary stress. I have a schwa for the I, the middle syllable, and some will consider that al sound and mal a schwa as well. Melody. Melody. I break the word up after the L and after the O. So O becomes a syllable all by itself. Mel is my primary. Schwa is the O, the second syllable. Ordinary. So we're making our break after the or. Why? We do not want to break up those our controlled vowels. So we automatically know there's or there. I make my break after the I, and then nair becomes one, Y becomes the other syllable. I've underlined, of course, the O, the I, the AR, and the Y. And OR could be underlined as one as well. If you want to sound box the OR and the AR so you know to keep those together, go ahead. The schwa will be the second syllable, and the primary stressor is on the first syllable. The second stressor or secondary stressor is on the third syllable. So we have ordinary, ordinary, ordinary. Moving on to inexcusable, we make our break after the N for the first syllable. Of course, we've underlined the I, the E, the U, the A, and the E at the end. Even though it's not sounded in this, we're going to underline it for our syllable division. So we have 5 syllables. The first division occurs before the E and X. The second division, we're going to break up our consonants, X and C. And then we're going to have a break after the U. And then the BLE forms one by itself. And again, we know we're dealing with schwa when we see that combination. Inexcusable. Where is my primary stress? On the third syllable. My secondary stress is on the first. And both the SA and the BLE are both considered schwa or unstressed. Inexcusable. 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 Energy is next. Energy is broken after the N. We see the ER as a syllable, the GY as a syllable. Of course, those vowels are underlined before we even begin. That helps us determine how many syllables we will have. The primary stress is on N. I do not have a secondary stress in this word. And the ER is going to make that vowel sound schwa. Volcano. O is underlined, A is underlined, O is underlined. We make our break between the L and the C for one syllable, vol, V-O-L, one syllable, C-A, one syllable, N-O, one syllable. Our primary stress is on the C-A, second syllable. Secondary stress is on the no. I have no schwa in this word. Volcano, volcano, volcano. Intelligent. I'm underlining my I, then I'm underlining the E, I'm underlining the second I, and then I'm underlining the E. I have 4 vowels. The sounds, therefore, I have 4 syllables. The first division comes between the N and the T because we're trying to separate those consonants. And we also separate the 2 L's, and we separate after the I. Li becomes a consonant by our syllable by itself. So we have a primary stress on the tel, and we do not have a secondary stress. The third syllable is considered unstressed schwa. The fourth syllable is considered unstressed. So we have intelligent, intelligent, intelligent. We're really hearing that tel. Simultaneous. So in simultaneous, I underline the I, underline the U, underline the A, underline the E, and underline the OU. Though I might not have actually done this on this sheet. Those are all going to be underlined. We're making our break after the M, between the M and the U, between the L and the T, after the A and before the N, and then OUS will become one syllable by itself. Simultaneous. So we start with the primary stress in the third syllable, ta. Sim has a secondary stress, so it's strong, but not as strong as the ta in simultaneous. Sha is the second syllable. We have that combination of E-L, U-L, I-A-L. We know that we're dealing with schwa. And then the OU we want boxed as one sound, just so we know that that's not going to be separated. And that as well is a schwa. So it's simultaneous. Simultaneous. So that te is the primary stressor. We go to piano, and we underline the I, we underline the A, we underline the O. We know we have 3 syllables, 3 vowel sections. The first break comes between those 2 vowels. I, A is going to get broken here. Piano, because I need a vowel sound in each syllable. So I move P and O in that way. So our primary stressor is on the second syllable before the N. Our secondary stressor is on the O. Piano, piano. There is no schwa in piano. Tomorrow. Tomorrow, we have the O underlined, the second O underlined, and the third O underlined, even though the underlines may have moved when this was formatted. So we separate the O and the M. We separate the two R's. So we have two more row. Primary stress is on the more. Secondary stress is on the row. Our schwa is in the two. So it's tomorrow. Tomorrow. Ambitious. Ambitious. We underline the A, we underline the I, we underline the I-O-U. Now this is going to be a little complicated because of the sound. But we separate between the M and the B, two consonants. I'm going to keep my it's almost like that sh. It's just another form of that shun word we had. So we're going to keep that as one sound, okay? Because it's one sound, those three vowels, even though they're not an actual diphthong or triphthong, we are using them to create a shaw sound, because it's that SH sound we're getting from the T that the following syllables help to bring out. Ambitious. Primary stress is on the B. No secondary stressors, and the schwa is the I-O-U-S. We move on to unacceptable. Unacceptable. We underline the U, we underline the A, we underline the E, we underline the second A, and we underline the final E. It's not silent here again because we're using that E, even though we don't hear it, to make the syllable. So what I've done here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've made 5 syllable divisions. I'm separating after the N. I'm separating the two C's. I'm separating the P and the T, and I'm leaving B-L-U-E as one syllable. Unacceptable. Primary stress is on the third syllable, sept. I have no secondary stress. I have a schwa over the second syllable, barely going to hear that, and over the last two syllables. So it will sound like unacceptable. Unacceptable. Let's look down at the next word on our list, and it's calendar. Again, I am underlining the A, underlining the E, underlining the last A. It is followed by an R, so if you want to underline both A and R or sound boxes so you know as not to separate that sound in your syllable division. So I have cal and dar. My primary stress is on the cal, the first syllable. No secondary stress. The middle syllable is schwa, and the final syllable, because it's R controlled, will be schwa. Remember, most of our R controlled will be schwa in the pronunciation of the word. Calendar, calendar. I now have banana. Again, remember, some of these words can be divided differently in different phonetic notations. Banana, banana. So we have a division between the A and the N, and between the A and the N in the second end of the word as well. The primary stress is on the NA. There's no secondary stress, and the schwa is over the first syllable and over the last. So we really want to enunciate that middle syllable. Banana, banana. Disposable. Disposable, I underline the I, underline the O, underline the second I, and underline that E, even though we know it's not going to be heard. So we make the division after the I and before the S, after the O and before the S. And because BLE stays together, of course, that's going to be a syllable on its own. We now know we have 4 syllables. My primary stress is going to be on the second syllable. I have no secondary stress, and I have a schwa in my third syllable and in my last syllable. disposable. Then I have supernatural. So in supernatural, I underline the U, I underline the E. I could underline the ER because it is R controlled, or I can put a box around it so I know those sounds stay together. I underline the A, I underline the U, and again I could do the same thing, underline the UR or put a box around UR knowing that they stay together. And I underline the A and L. Supernatural. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make my third syllable the primary stressor and my first syllable the secondary stressor. Supernatural. Now that, even though I have not said it, we have a schwa in the ER, we have a schwa in the UR because they're R controlled, and we have a schwa over the AL. Perfection. We underline the E, underline the second E, underline the I-O. We know that shun right away looking at it is going to make one syllable by itself, so we're not going to divide that. And because T and C are both consonants, we're going to divide them anyway. We also divide between the R and the F. We have 3 syllables because of the vowel sounds. Perfection. Now my primary stress is on the second syllable. I have no secondary stress, but I also have a schwa in per and the schwa in ION because we barely hear it. Now my E has moved over to the FEC, but it should be on top of the per. Only because of the formatting it somehow moved. Perfection. Diamond. In diamond I have an underline under my I, an underline under my A, an underline under my O. We have 3 sounds, 3 vowel sounds, 3 syllables. My diamond. Now di has the primary stress. We have the schwa over the A and a schwa over the O. We're not going to hear those very much. They're going to be unstressed. The thing to note about this, though, is this is one of those words where if we say it fast enough, we won't even hear the second syllable. It will sound like a 2-syllable word. Diamond. Most people will just say diamond. They don't say diamond. But it is correctly pronounced as diamond. Then we have responsible. Finally, so what we're going to do with responsible, underline the E, underline the O, underline the I, underline that E at the end and blah. Even though we're not going to hear it, we're going to end with an L sound, but we underline the E anyway. So I'm going to make my break between the E and the S, between the N and the S, between the I and the B. Responsible. My primary stress is on the second syllable spawn. I have no secondary stress. I have 2 schwa on my second last syllable and my last syllable. Remember, BLE is usually schwa anyway. So So we're really hearing that spawn. Responsible. There we go. So tearing down things can be fun. We can see from the chapter that doing so can also be challenging, especially when it comes to syllable division and stresses. This is an area that requires a great deal of practice, more practice than you will get from one chapter in a book. Though I want you to eventually become independent of your dictionary, for now you can use it as a backup to understanding how to divide words and pronounce words using their stresses and schwa appropriately. There is no expectation of perfection in any language learning journey. We're just learning, and the greatest learning, I believe, comes with trial and error. Don't be afraid to try, and don't be afraid to make a mistake or two as you journey along. What we have covered together so far. We discussed the processes of building and breaking down the components of English words. We covered the importance of working at that word room syllable level of a word when we were building or chunking. We talked about the importance of understanding what sounds are created in each word part. We covered the 44 sounds, 24 consonant sounds, and 20 vowel sounds heard in the English language, and when to use them. We emphasized the pronunciation of Canadian English. You now have many word lists and words to work with. We even went beyond the sound focus of our word work to understand how we can build and tear down words using affixes and word roots. Though you may or may not be perfect at the 3P approach yet, you now have a basic, a sound basis on which you can build. I am going to encourage you to practice, practice, practice. We're not seeking perfection here, just growth. With every page you read here, every review exercise you attempt, and with every word you add to your word journal, you grow as an English speaker, reader, and writer. Congratulations. There are some odds and ends related to the English language we have yet to discuss that may be worthy of being considered. We will look at those before we end our time here together. So let's go on and have a peek at what is hidden in the junk drawers of our apartment.